Okay, so yesterday I posted a reprise of a video I had made on anti-theism and exposing the fallacy of the position of anti-theism. And I got a little bit of a fun little Twitter response, for the most part productive. But then Shannon went so far as to tweet this. I got into a conversation with some Twitter atheists. Yes, some prominent ones, top shelf ones. Noel Plum even, and Miss Shannon Q. Yeah, Shannon, remember her? But Shannon went so far as to say this. Seems like to knock down anti-theists, they have to represent all of our views as some form of militant abolitionism. I agree that's a horrible perspective, and I'm an anti-theist, so it's odd to me. Now, to be completely fair to Shannon Q, Twitter is often confusing, and I'm not entirely sure that that was directed at me. I'm not even sure if I'm included in the they. But let me just put it all into perspective and clarify the position of what I was trying to say on anti-theism. There is, and I think I pointed it out pretty clearly in the video I posted, there is such a thing as a militant abolitionist anti-theist. I wasn't necessarily saying Shannon is one of them. Generally speaking, Shannon is on the more reasonable side of the equation, but she leans a little bit more towards religion as poison. Now, the person who I was referring to in that video was Aron Ra. And Aron Ra, and there's a contingency on Twitter, and there's a contingency of anti-theists like him, is what I described as a rabid dog anti-theist, a mad dog anti-theist. And yeah, he's a militant abolitionist, and I don't think I'm misrepresenting his position at all, not even a little. I'll post a link to the video that I was citing in a debate with him and Inspiring Philosophy. The debate was titled, "Is Christianity Dangerous?" And homeboy practically was foaming at the mouth about Christianity. Now, as I've said in the past, the boogeyman that he preaches, the boogeyman that he talks about, that he calls religion and Christianity, bears very little resemblance to the faith practiced by me and my co-religionists. But he is certainly a militant abolitionist and a rabid mad dog anti-theist. Now, again, I'm not putting Shannon in that category. Shannon, as a rule, is more reasonable. But listen to him talk about religion. He foams at the mouth. He starts, going on these tirades where he accuses religion of every crime under the sun, basically. And he's, according to him, religion is a plague on humanity itself. I bet you $1,000 he might have even used that very expression, that Christianity is a plague on humanity itself. Wouldn't surprise me. And what's more important, because Aron Ra is not exactly a marginalized figure, and he does not have a reasonable take on, he's not able to have a reasonable conversation about the pro-social benefits of Christianity versus the negative attributes of Christianity. Now, let's take Noel Plum, for example. Noel Plum is potentially an anti-theist, but a much milder form. So there are variations in how people approach anti-theism. But a milder form anti-theist like a Noel Plum, or potentially even a Shannon, I probably wouldn't disagree with them. I'm aware that there are certain aspects of Christianity that are potentially harmful, how it's practiced today. And if you lined up the anti-theists and they gave you their three main complaints about Christianity, there are probably others, but I'm guessing it would go something like this. Religion is anti-science. Okay, I'm not for that. I think science should be respected, and as far as unless you have evidence to the contrary, you should go with what science is telling you is the truth. They would also say religion is dogmatic. I'm not in favor of being dogmatic. I think that I'm one of the least dogmatic people around. And then they'll say religion is homophobic. Now, I'm not in favor of homophobia either. So I'm not in favor of any of the toxic attributes of religion that they would pin on Christianity at all. So I don't think, for example, if Noel Plum and I were to discuss Christianity, I don't think we'd disagree all that much on what the things that were potentially harmful or destructive about the practice as Christianity has been practiced over the centuries. What I'm talking about is the rabid dog anti-theists a la Aron Ra. Now, those people exist. And here's the problem. So to be perfectly fair to Shannon, I don't necessarily think that tweet was aimed at me, but but also to be perfectly fair to Christians, there is a contingency within her community that is strong, rabidly anti-theist, and impervious to reasoned discussion. That's the real problem. That's what I was trying to point out with the video. If you cannot see the evidence, he's been doing this for 20 years. That's what he'll tell you 100 times over. And he has never seemed to see the evidence of the pro-social benefits of Christianity. That means you didn't do search number 1, because it's really easy. And furthermore, what I was trying to say is the atheists, atheists are supposed to be Mr. and Mrs. evidence-based conclusions. The evidence in favor of the sociological benefits of religion are profound, they're overwhelming, and they're consistent. There are a couple of studies that get cited that point to some of the more potentially unhealthy attributes of it. Like I said, I don't dispute those subjects. But if you're going to have a reasoned conversation about whether religion is a net positive or a net negative, you can't disregard all the evidence that says it's positive. And that's what he does. And that's what a lot of the mad dog anti-theists do. He is not unique. And what's more important is that he's not exactly a marginalized figure. Last time I looked, he's one of the 4 or 5 most prominent atheists on Twitter, on YouTube. Most people would cite him as one of the top 5. They'd say, Paul Gia, greatest atheist of all time. Matt Dillahunty, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Aron Ra. He'd be right up there. He'd be right up there in their list of who they actually listen to the most. And if we're talking about the prevalence of the ideology, see, there's a contingency of anti-theists, and this is what I was trying to point out, that are impervious to reasoned discussion. They disregard all the evidence that shows you clearly that there are pro-social benefits of Christianity. All of them. And they are eliminationists. They want to eradicate religion because they consider it a poison on humanity, a plague on humanity. This is not an uncommon position in the anti-theist community. Matter of fact, when I first got on Twitter, I used to consider anti-theist a synonym for total douchebag atheist, because they'd say things like that to me. Religion is a plague on mankind. Religion is superstitious nonsense. It's poison. It's a mind virus. It's toxic. Those aren't uncommon things. Now, there are extremists in the Christian community. Yes, there are. But here's the difference. For example, you have, the pumpkin Christians. Those are the Christians, if you haven't been paying attention, there's a lot of atheists now who have a pumpkin on their Twitter feed. And the origin, I forget the exact origin. Mr. Atheist, I think one of them called him the biggest fruit since the pumpkin. And in solidarity, they all posted a pumpkin. I'm not exactly sure what the origin is. But that particular group of Christians are foaming at the mouth extremists. Correct? Here's the difference. I don't have anything to do with them at all. I don't watch their videos. I don't read their tweets. They don't comment on my tweets. I don't like any tweets they've ever made. They aren't prominent in the Christian community. If they hadn't been called out by the atheists, I never would have heard of them, never would have known who they were. Vaguely knew if Steven Anderson is associated with them, if that's a person in that community, I had vaguely heard of him because he gets in a lot of YouTube fights with preachers. And he's always saying things like Joel Osteen is of the devil and all this. He's against Christians too. He thinks Christians are anyone who doesn't agree with him is a devil worshiping Christian. If it's the same guy, I'm not sure it's the same guy. I don't exactly know who the I hate gay Christians are, but the pumpkin Christians. Okay, so there's a contingency of extremist Christians. I hate gay Christians. I have nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them. Never read their videos, never read any of their tweets, never watched their videos, don't even know who they are really. As far as I'm concerned, they are marginalized figures within the Christian community itself. They're not exactly household names. Aron Ra isn't. That's the problem. And if you go look at Shannon's Twitter feed, now I'm not saying Shannon herself is like this. And to be perfectly fair to Shannon, I know she does call out the more extreme elements of her own community. Just 2 weeks ago, she made a video on, calling out the people in the atheist community who say religion is a mental illness. And I think she got blowback from within the atheist community. All I'm trying to tell you is that they're there and they're real. So the video wasn't necessarily directed at you, Shannon. I think that it's perfectly capable of having a reasonable conversation with you wherein we discuss both the positive and negative attributes of Christianity. And you will cede some ground to go, yeah, okay, I guess that's a good thing, and I guess it's good when Christians do that. I don't think she'd be complaining when Christians build hospitals and, give ice cream to handicapped children and build orphanages and things like that. And we do that stuff in the name of religion. That's the only thing I was trying to point out. Matter of fact, if you go look at your hometown right now, I bet you $1,000 there's a church, a hospital right near you, the closest hospital. Go look at what it's called. $1,000, it's called St. John, St. Joseph. Religion had some hand in putting it there. That's all I was trying to point out. That there are tons of pro-social benefits of Christianity, and they're overwhelming, they're constant. If you disregard them, if you don't choose to see them, you are choosing to not examine the evidence. That's all I was trying to point out. Furthermore, I wasn't accusing necessarily people like Shannon or Noel Plum of being extremists at all. Noel Plum strikes me as mellow, moderately anti-theist. So I would probably agree with a lot of the things that he complained about. I don't exactly know what the knock on Mother Teresa is. Apparently Mother Teresa is evil. I've never examined what the complaint is. Yeah, it seems a little far-fetched to me too. The only thing I've ever known about Mother Teresa is that she fed starving people. That strikes me as a good deed, and she did it in the name of Jesus. I don't think the starving people were complaining too much. She has terrible views on what? I'm not sure, but abortion or something. The starving guy was probably like, I think she's really cool, leave her alone. But there's something wrong with Mother Teresa. Okay, I'm sure I'd agree with the criticism. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe she's, mean to gay people. I'm not sure. But there's things that she's doing that are obviously pro-social, beneficial to all mankind. And oftentimes we do it in the name of religion. Now, there are some things we do that are not necessarily beneficial to all mankind. And sometimes, less so than the anti-theist would have you believe, we do those in the name of religion too. Like, persecute gays or whatever it is sometimes we do in the name of religion. I'm not saying that everything that falls under the banner of religion is net positive no matter what. But overall, if you're going to have a subject about is religion dangerous, you have to have an inclusive subject that takes into account both the positives and the negatives. And anti-theists as a group tend to disregard the evidence that shows the positives. Aron Ra is the king of that. And what I was also trying to get at while responding to Shannon's tweet is that why she might not be a militant abolitionist. I'd say 30% of the people who click on, who like her tweets, whose tweets she likes, if I went through her Twitter feed right now, I bet you 30% of them are. Easily. So it's not exactly like 1 out of every 50 like it is with the I hate gay Christians. I hate gay Christians are radical. I don't know anybody in any Christian that I know on Twitter who's for them. Any Christian I interact with. Even Stephanie. Stephanie. Ew, yeah, Stephanie. Even Stephanie Attila in human form doesn't like the I hate gay Christians. Even her. Stephanie's terrible. I know, pure evil in human form. I agree. But even her, she doesn't even like the I hate gay Christians. So nobody that I know is for them. Nobody I know thinks they're a good representation of Jesus. Nobody I know thinks, hey, those people are really walking with the Lord and we should follow them because they're really nailing it. We all want to disassociate ourselves with them and don't want anything to do with them. Which is the appropriate response to foaming at the mouth extremists, correct? Correct. The difference is, and I'm certainly not accusing Shannon of this, so, Paul G, no, just kidding. Jimbo Jones, Jimbo Majors, yes, absolutely, foaming at the mouth. You saw him, he could barely contain himself. No, none of the people who I interact with am I accusing of this. I am just simply saying that as a prominent voice in your community is not a marginalized voice. Aron Ra is not marginalized. He's one of the top 10 person that anybody would cite as an influence. And I'll have the video link here. You can hear it for himself. Foams at the mouth about Christianity. Rabid dog interpretation of anti-theism. And it's not mild. Now, is it ultimately harmless? Do I take him seriously? Do I think he's a hate-filled extremist like the I hate gay Christians? No. It's a, you know, he's a YouTuber. It's partially for effect. It's partially polemic, and he's talented at it. But it's still there. That's all I'm pointing out. Still there. It's not rational. It's not reasonable. Most of you who are reasonable anti-theists don't agree with it. So, I think that helped clarify it. Maybe it didn't. You know, there are 3 types of anti-theists. Foaming at the mouth anti-theists, who are a bigger part of your atheist community than you wish to acknowledge. Mild anti-theists, probably Shannon's in there. You know, really doesn't like religion, no fan of religion at all, but able to have some sort of reasonable discourse about what its positive attributes may be. And then someone like Noel Plum, probably the mildest, you know, has some critiques about criticism, about religion. You know, doesn't like Little Drummer Boy. Likes the Little Drummer Boy at Christmas time. He's not in a war on Christmas. Likes the Little Drummer Boy, but that's about it. Where you should all ultimately be, though, just so I can be perfectly crystal clear and upfront about this, is where Adam Friended is. If you are not going to believe in God, which I think you should, but if you're not going to, then you should acknowledge that the pro-social benefits of Christianity outweigh what you consider the toxic attributes. And in order to see that clearly, you have to actually click on the links that tell you about the pro-social benefits. Watch the video with Matt Dillahunty versus Inspiring Philosophy. Matt Dillahunty loses that debate easily, like by a lot. Aron Ra doesn't really lose the debate with Inspiring Philosophy because Aron Ra's, you know, he's good at what he does. He's convincing. Powerful, passionate speaker, a powerful, passionate emoter. But his case against religion is false. It's flawed. It's emotional. It's irrational. It is not evidence-based. It is based on, I feel really strongly this. And let me tell you, and then he starts telling it to you. It's convincing. He's not lying, that's for sure. He really hates religion, you know. But, there you have it, kids. So, yeah, rambly, like the guy said, I never quite get to the point. But I thought it was a fruitful conversation. I'll post this video, and you can respond as you see fit. That is all for now. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.